It's becoming clear to me, the longer I do this job, that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is to have a good guy with a gun. This was the scene last night in New York City. 4 people are dead, including an off-duty NYPD officer, after a mass shooting at a Midtown Manhattan office building. The normal rush hour commotion devolved into chaos and fear. Not far, by the way, from famed sites like St. Patrick's Cathedral and Rockefeller Center. The gunman, identified as 27-year-old Nevada resident Shane Tamura. He walked calmly, as you can see, into the building and then opened fire. He went up to the 33rd floor and eventually turned the gun on himself. In the last hour, Mayor Eric Adams revealing that an associate of the shooter helped him buy parts of that gun.
Part of the weapons was purchased by an associate of the perpetrator, and he also purchased the firearm that was found in the car by using a carry permit that he received in Nevada. When you have an assault rifle of that sort, there are parts. There are lower parts of the body. There are upper parts. There are different parts that assembles the gun. The lower part, we are finding out, was purchased by an associate. We are now attempting to identify him and question him at this time.
For so much focus on the gun, there's always a turn, an appropriate turn, to focus on the individual, his mental health. But today I also want to talk to you about other individuals. You, me, us, good guys. Here's the story on Tamura. He had worked as a security guard but was not allowed to carry his gun on the job. His work card expired last December. At this hour, his motive does still remain unclear. What is clear is that he had a history of mental health issues and grievances, apparently, with the NFL, which is one of the companies that was located inside that high-rise. There was a note left behind near his body. Mayor Adams says it reveals he blamed the National Football League for a brain injury, and the league was likely the intended target.
He never played in the NFL, and he alluded to the CTE being the reason for his illness. It appears as though he was going after the employees at the NFL. He appeared to have gone to the wrong floor and due to the wrong elevator bank, where you can see on the front desk which elevator bank was the NFL, but he did not go to that bank.
Tamura also had time to think about what he was doing. Here's his travel schedule. Saturday, he traveled through Colorado. Sunday, he went through Nebraska and Iowa. Monday afternoon, he showed up in New Jersey. And then 6:30 last night Eastern time, the 911 calls started. Back in his home state of Nevada, Tamura reportedly had 2 mental health crisis holds in 2022 and 2024. What is a mental health hold? Well, it's when a person is detained for up to 72 hours if they are deemed a danger to themselves or others. Officers then transport that person to the hospital. Medical staff decide how long to hold them. So we're getting a sense now of what it was like for people inside that building. In fact, this image of Blackstone employees barricading their office door with furniture is certainly resonating. They are stuck in a position, taking honorable action, brave action, to barricade themselves in front of that office, to block that door. But it's also defense. How did this guy, who reportedly had 2 mental health crises, hold and get a gun? How did he retain that gun? Don't we need more good guys with guns so that we can at times be on offense? We might have more questions than answers here, but let's arrive at that proposition together. Through the process of elimination, is the answer more good guys with guns? Former NYPD detective and Brosnan risk consultant founder Pat Brosnan joins me now. Pat, you've heard my contention that the true way we're going to solve this problem is to have more good guys with guns, but I want to get there, you, me, and the audience, through the process of elimination. So let's talk about mental health for just a moment. It does seem odd that a man who had 2 medical holds had the ability to gain or maintain a weapon. I think that some reports are he got the weapon before these episodes. But there are a lot of people with practical questions about how does a sick person, a mentally ill person, have a gun?
Well, because there's guidelines, Will. There's very strictly established protocols as it relates to what triggers a disqualification in the state of Nevada and what doesn't trigger it. And it really boils down to three things. It boils down to a timeline, the most recent 5 years, and it boils down to either mental incompetence as determined by a judicial authority or involuntary commitment. That's it. Background checks only go after legal triggers. Mental incompetence, it has to be in the last 5 years. They threw you into the nut house because you were mentally incompetent, or you were standing trial and you perhaps said, he's by reason of insanity, by reason of a mental defect, a judicial authority makes a formal determination in court and for the record. Otherwise, no problem at all. I would suspect very smooth sailing. And I happen to have firsthand interactions exactly with this because we had a lot of employees, a lot of armed officers in my company in the state of Nevada, particularly in Las Vegas, in the casinos and in retail. And we saw it time and time again, where we would do our own internal background check at Brosnan, irrespective of the state mandated. And we'd say, this guy's got some issues. And then we'd bring it to legal and we'd say, well, listen, we're not comfortable with hiring him, but the state will greenlight him because it doesn't trigger under those three parameters: timeline of 5 years, illegal, involuntary, commitment, or legal determination of mental incompetence. But we made subjective determinations with counsel that we weren't cool with it.
Right. And look, while everyone watching, I would think, doesn't want anyone insane to have a gun, there are real practical applications, as you point out, to taking away someone's constitutional rights based upon the testimony of a psychologist or a medical doctor. It raises real questions about when one loses their rights. It's not easy to conceivably write a law as to when you would lose your rights based upon some mental illness. But I want to move forward now. I want to talk about law enforcement. There's a lot of talk about law enforcement in major American cities, blue cities often. And Curtis Lew, who's running for mayor as a Republican in New York City, brought this up last night on Hannity.
We don't have enough police. We desperately need more police. And we need photo recognition technology so that they can spot people right away with the technology we have, walking around boldly, brazenly with guns, so we can preemptively do something. There are potential terrorists watching how easy it is to walk through the streets of New York City, to carry an AR-15, to walk into a corporate world headquarters that represents capitalism, and then slaughter people indiscriminately.
Now, Pat, the problem I have here is that while we all appreciate and respect law enforcement and want to make it as strong as possible, it's simply impossible to think that we could have enough policemen to ensure that nothing bad ever happens. No bad guy ever gets to do what he wants. I don't think we can surveil and police enforce ourselves into utopia. So I'm not sure that the answer here to solve something like this is simply more police.
Well, more police will always help. It helps both in the general and specific deterrent, Will, and also assists dramatically in terms of response times. But the fallacy of sustained surveillance, which is something I've written extensively on, it's unsustainable. The reality is, I looked very closely at that tape. I know 345 Park Avenue like the back of my hand. I provided armed security in that lobby over the years. And the reality is, there was no element of mitigation, no mitigative steps that could have been employed that would have stopped him from walking from his double parked BMW on the east side of Park Avenue in through the glass doors, about 50 feet of sidewalk. Probably took him 7 seconds, only because he was strutting. He was strutting. Right. He wasn't walking. He was strutting. He was cocky. He was full of himself. He was focused. He was determined. He was concentrated. Otherwise, he could have did it in 4 or 5 seconds. No way to mitigate that. That's just a nightmare that unfolds very rapidly.
All right, then finally, in this process of elimination, Pat, there is what's offered up every time there's a shooting by the left. And here's Congressman Dan Goldman. He posted on X that he drove from Las Vegas to New York with an AR-15, which cannot be purchased in New York. He walked into an office building, started spraying the lobby, killing a police officer whose handgun was no match for the AR-15. This isn't about New York. It's about Republicans persistently blocking common sense gun safety reform, including an assault weapon ban. Now, the problem here, I would suspect, Pat, is that gun control, A, is always their answer to every situation. B, I would defy Congressman Goldman the ability to define what is an assault weapon. He can't define, I'm sure, what is a woman, and I am almost certain he couldn't define, because most people can't, what is an assault weapon.
So you're 100% right. This is their knee-jerk go-to response: gun control, gun control, gun control. What they fail to acknowledge, Will, is that there are 350 million guns in play right now as we sit here.
Right.
They're in holsters, they're in mailboxes, they're in suitcases, they're in drawers. Unless we devise a magical weapon that could somehow make them inoperable, you cannot stop it. The guns are already in play. If we never printed another gun, manufactured another gun, starting right now, forever, they'd still be 350 million. I'd go after the ammo. To be honestly, I would try to restrict and curtail the ammo distribution, because the guns are out there. And by the way, with just a little bit of oiling and a wet rag, well, no, listen, you're looking at somebody with a big gun collection. I concur. But I'm just saying, the gun control response, madness and silly.
Agreed.
Very
Agreed.
silly.
And by the way, they have gone after ammo in many ways. It's hard to get ammo on many occasions in the United States. But what I'm leading us to here in the end, I need to tie this up, Pat, is through the process of elimination, we see the limitations of mental health issues, of gun control, of even more police officers. And I arrive ultimately at the responsibility of the citizenry. It's us. And if bad guys are going to have guns, the only way to solve this is good guys with guns. It's the ability to step up for ourselves and not always have to play defense and barricade ourselves into office doors. But if the bad guy knows he walks in, he better be prepared to deal with a good guy.
Couldn't agree more, Will. It's the ultimate force multiplier. Have something, see something, say something, eyes and ears, all of the stuff that, all these phrases that have come up over the recent years. But the reality is a citizenry, which by vast majority are really good people. They're solid.
Yes.
They obey the rule of law. They respect law enforcement. Those are our partners in law enforcement, because it's a finite number. Law enforcement is a finite number if you look at it relative to the overall population. We're a partnership, and this is a very important partnership, as we saw yesterday. But I don't see any way, to be very frank with you, and I'll close on this. There's no way they could have stopped them. It was too quick from the car into the lobby, my opinion.
All right. Incredible conversation. Thank you so much. I hope enlightening for the audience. Thank you, Pat. Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.